Hi, I'm Kimberly Washburn, Curator of Education at the Florence County Museum. Welcome to September's Family Day at Home. Today, we're going to be making a plaster cast planter. It's just a small planter that you can use to plant a small plant in your house. The first things you're going to need to do are get some objects from your Family Day at Home kit. You're going to need your small plastic baggie of plaster. You can go ahead and empty that into your large plastic cup. You're going to need your small cup. You're going to need 1/4 cup of water. Go ahead and measure that out ahead of time so that you're not having to stop and start. And you're going to need your popsicle stick. You're also going to need to gather a few supplies from around the house. The first one we're going to need for this step is something heavy that will fit inside of your small cup. You're going to have to weigh this cup down. I just happen to have a bag of marbles. Those are nice and heavy. But if you don't have that, you could use some rocks from outside. You could use coins if you have a little stash of coins. You could also use just water. If you don't have anything else, you can fill this cup up with water and very carefully use that. That's sort of a last resort. So let's get started. The first step is to mix our plaster. I've emptied my plastic bag of plaster of Paris into my large plastic cup. This is 1/2 cup of plaster, just so you know. And to that, we're going to add 1/4 cup of water. I'm going to go ahead and pour that in. And I'm going to use my craft stick to stir. Now, I want to stir, stir, stir until there are no lumps. I want to make sure I'm scraping the bottom of the cup all the way down to the bottom. Really scraping to make sure it's very well mixed. You want this to be a little bit thicker than pancake batter. If this seems too thick, if it's thicker than pancake batter, or if it's really clumpy and it's just not smoothing out, you can add just a touch more water, maybe about 1 teaspoon to 1 tablespoon at a time. The more water you add, the longer it will take to set up. So less is more. All right, so I've got my plaster mixed. It's nice and thick, it's smooth, no lumps. All the powder has been mixed from the base of the cup. I'm going to give the sides a little scrape and just kind of tap off my craft stick there. And then I'm going to give my cup a little tap. That's going to get out any air bubbles that may be in the plaster. You'll kind of see those rising to the top. Now, what we're going to do is place this cup inside and press it down. We need to put something heavy in here because if we don't, this cup will just float right back up to the top. What we want to do with this cup is create this opening in our planter. So I'm going to get some marbles and fill up my cup. Okay, so that's nice and heavy. And I'm just going to lower this down into my cup. And I'm sort of going to press it so that the plaster comes up around the sides. I'm going to give it a little tap so that it's even all the way around. And try to make it straight. You don't want it tilted to one side. You don't want the cup tipping, the cup in the middle tipping to one side. I'm just going to give that a little press. And we're going to let the plaster set. Now, I like to let mine set for 24 hours before I move on to the next step. The plaster may be hardened up in as little as an hour, but it may need up to 24 hours. Let's move on to the next step. Okay, it's been 24 hours now since we mixed up our plaster and created our plaster cast. Now our plaster is hard and set, and we're ready to take it out of the cup. So the first thing I want to do is remove whatever I used to weigh down my paper cup. I used marbles. If you used water, you're going to want to pour that water out carefully. Try not to get water down in your plaster. If you use coins, whatever it is, you're just going to dump that out. I'm just going to put mine in this them out of the way. All right. So now that's empty. Now the next step is going to be to remove this paper cup. You should be able to just kind of crush it. You can see down in there, I'm just crushing it away from my plaster, and I'm going to give it a pull to pull it out. Just like that. So it's out. And then the next step is to take my plaster cast out of the plastic cup. To do that, I'm going to need to cut my cup. So I'm just going to put some slits with some scissors. So you're going to want a grown-up to do this part. So find some scissors around the house. Have a grown-up help you remove this from the cup, because it is a little tricky and it does take some strength. And I don't want anyone to get cut. So once that's done, you can get a little more of a slice here. You can just pull those edges of the cup away. Again, this is a step for a grown-up, so let a grown-up help you get this out so you don't cut yourself on the cup. Just gonna pull it away, just like that. And you can pop it out of the cup, like that. And now I have a little plaster cast planter. Now, to smooth this up, you can also use a little scrubbing pad. So this is a scrubbing pad just from my kitchen, and this rough edge of the scrubbing pad or some steel wool, any kind of scrubber that you have, if you just kind of lightly scrub over those edges, it'll remove any sharp edges, any flaky plaster that's left over. It'll just give your planter a nice finished edge. Like that. Do this on the bottom edge too. I had a little bit of a crumble down there, so I'm going to soften that up. Okay. And now there's no sharp edges. Everything is nice and smooth. If you'd like to decorate your planter, you can see I've added some decorative paint here. I'm just using acrylic paint. In your kit, you have a little cup of acrylic gold paint or metallic paint and a Q-tip. And you can use that to add some decorative color to your planter. The paint will soak into your plaster fairly quickly. Let this dry again for about 24 hours before you do any planting in your pot. So you're going to want your pot to fully dry before you do any planting. Just some simple decorative elements. To create a lovely little plaster pot. We hope you enjoyed this activity.